Hello viewers, this is Mahantesh Bhapri. Welcome to this video. In this video, we will learn about a new topic, that is Louis Pasteur, Conqueror of Disease. Actually, it is written by E.H. Carter. This lesson is prescribed for 10th class English first language. Okay, dear children. So it's taken from a book called Pioneers of the Modern World. So it's a name of book and it is taken from the book called Pioneers of Modern World. So before we start, let's learn about or let's get more and more information about the author. Dear children, please open your textbook, page number 69. Note on the author. E.H. Carter was the chief inspector of schools in England during 1930s to 1940. So E.H. Carter worked as school inspector, chief school inspector during 1930 to 1940, whose duty was to give academic guidance to students, teachers, even institutions. On the base of that experience, he wrote this chapter. He co-authored a book, A History of Britain. Co-authored means he wrote with the help of his friend, or both he and his friend wrote a book called History of Britain. So that's why it is called co-author. Okay. So let's learn what he has written in this chapter. So one pre-reading activity is there, dear children. Who in your opinion is the greatest scientist, and also say why. So you have to tell or say who is your greatest scientist and why. Why do you consider him or her as a greatest scientist? You have to give reasons. What are his or her contribution to the field of science? Why do you like? So go on writing at least 6 to 8 sentences. It means that you will learn how to write about a particular scientist. Okay, it's a writing activity. Please do it, dear children. So let's start our chapter. Dear children, please subscribe our channel and share our videos to your friends by pressing red colored subscribe button which is on your screen. Are you ready, dear children? So let's learn. Please open your textbook on the page number 51. On the field of battle, in one of his campaigns, Napoleon decorated for bravery a certain tanner named Pasteur. Dear children, you know Napoleon in history. By learning social science, you know about Napoleon. Napoleon was one of the greatest warriors of the world, whose achievements we study in the book of history. So he decorated bravery of Louis Pasteur in the tanner. Tanner means tanner means one who makes animal skin into leather. So he made or he showed bravery of Louis Pasteur in the tanner. Okay, dear children. So even Napoleon also praised Louis Pasteur because Louis Pasteur gave so many contributions for the betterment of humankind, human beings. So the brave soldier had an equally brave son, Louis Pasteur. So he said that the brave soldier, an equally brave son. See, Louis Pasteur didn't work as soldier. Still, he worked against disease. He fought against disease. That's why Louis Pasteur was called brave soldier, brave son by Napoleon. Born 7 years after Waterloo. See, Louis Pasteur was born after Waterloo battle. Waterloo battle is a famous battle in European history. He was not a soldier. As you know that Louis Pasteur was not a soldier. Then what he was? He was a fighter. Was he fighter in the street? Oh, no, he was a fighter against diseases. Okay. He fought disease. He fought against disease. Okay. He devoted his life to the study of what we sometimes call germs. See, he dedicated his whole life for the study of germs. Do you know, dear children? Germs means bacteria. Germs means bacteria. Bacteria means small living beings. So that what we study in further sentences. Okay. Call germs, which men of science call bacteria. So men of science means scientists call these germs as bacteria. Then what do you mean by bacteria? A Greek word meaning little rods. So what actually this word is taken from Greek word. It's a Greek word and it means little rods. They look like bacteria or germs look like little rods like this. And they are invisible, no doubt. But if you watch them through microscope, they look like little rods, just like rods are iron rods. Bacteria are vegetable organisms. See, please underline. What are bacteria? Bacteria are vegetable organisms, little rod-shaped plants. So they are plants. Actually, bacteria are just like plants. Vegetable organisms means they grow just as vegetables. And little rod-shaped plants. They are just rod-shaped plants. Small rod-shaped plants. Please underline. Which exist in air. Bacteria exist in air. They live in air, water, soil, and in the bodies of animals and plants. See, these bacteria live or exist in air, water, soil, and bodies of animals. There is no such thing, such area where there are no bacteria. So bacteria we can find everywhere. Some but not all are causes of diseases. Some bacteria cause disease. They bring disease, but all bacteria are not harmful. Some bacteria are useful for human beings or animals. Some convert matter into food for plants. See, some are good bacteria. They convert food. They convert matter or things into food. Okay, dear children, so those are good bacteria. They are not harmful. Louis Pasteur had a very busy and interesting life. So Louis Pasteur was not a lazy fellow. He always led his life in a busy. In what way he was busy? He was busy in experimenting. So many experiments. He not only made some exciting discoveries about germs, but he was able to use his discoveries in a very practical ways. So he didn't discover only a few things or few germs, but he brought his discoveries for the benefit of human beings, for the betterment of human life. So please follow this, dear children. Sometimes scientists discover and for themselves, and those are not at all useful for the common people. But Louis Pasteur worked for the betterment of common people even. So this is why Louis Pasteur, we remember Louis Pasteur even today. He worked hard in his laboratory with the test tubes and all kinds of experiments nearly all the time. So he worked always with the tubes and all kinds of experiments in his laboratory. He was working to help people who were suffering in some special way from disease. So he always worked to help those people who are suffering from at least some diseases. So he got solution for so many diseases practically. Among the people whom Pasteur was able to help were, so please underline, whom Pasteur helped. Brewers. Brewer means these are the producers of beer. One who produces beer is an alcoholic drink. One who produces beer, so they are called brewers. And breeders of silkworms. Farmers who grow silkworms. So he also helped. Cow keepers. So Louis Pasteur also worked to help cow keepers. In what way he helped? Let's learn. All of whom were trying to carry on important industries in France. So he also worked to help to improve the conditions of industries in France. Pasteur was always very proud of being able to help his country in this way. So Pasteur worked up to end of his life for the betterment of his country, for the betterment of human beings. Louis Pasteur, born in a little French country town, he was born in a French country town. That town was not so big. Was interested in chemistry when he was very young. So his interesting subject was chemistry. After studying hard in Paris and showing great promise, so he studied most of his years in France. He began to teach and lecture as professor of chemistry. So after completing his education, he worked as professor of chemistry. He became a professor at Strasbourg in Alsace, and so he worked as a professor of chemistry at Strasbourg, and after some time he married a wife who was always to be his closest companion. He married a woman who was his closest companion, means she helped him in his experiments and assistant. So she worked as assistant to him. It means that she was also mainly responsible for the discoveries of Louis Pasteur. So this is very important. Pasteur was deeply interested in all new experiments that were being made in chemistry. So he was very much interested in doing experiments in chemistry because his interesting subject was chemistry. Decided to solve some of the difficult problems that were worrying chemists and other scientists. So he decided to solve some difficulties or problems in the field of chemistry and science. So some diseases are very much worrying some chemists and scientists. Sometimes he used to sit for hours. So whenever he found some problem or difficulty, so he used to sit for hours. He used to sit for hours, 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, quite silent. He didn't talk with anybody. He sat silently and motionless. He did not do anything, just focusing on that particular problem. Thinking hard about one of his difficulties. So he was thinking with all his angles. He found this easiest way to solve a problem. So after that, he found solution for that problem. And when he thought of a solution, his kind, tired looking face would brighten with pleasure. So when he found solution to his problem, his eyes or his tired face will brighten. So it's quite natural that whenever you also find some solution to some problem, your face will brighten. So it is quite natural. In the same way, Louis Pasteur become very happy, or he gets very pleasure and excitement. He would rush around to his discovery to his wife, tell his discovery to his wife and to others who were helping him. So after getting solution to his problem, he used to first tell his wife, then his friends. So here you may get one question: how did Louis Pasteur solve any problem, and whom he used to tell first? How? So you may get 2 marks question on this. So please note down. Let's go to paragraph number 6. In 1854, Pasteur was appointed head of a college of science at Lille, a busy manufacturing town in the northwest of France. So in 1854, he started working as head of college of science at Lille. Lille is a place in France where we find so many industries. He was pleased about this. So he was very much interested in teaching. That's why he became very happy. Because he always felt that trades and industries could be helped very much by the researches of men of science. See, he strongly believed that scientists must help to find solutions in the field of trades and industries. So this is very much industries. all researchers must focus. If researchers focus on this, certainly every country will grow like anything. His chance to be useful soon became. So all his experiments, his doings, his achievements for the sake of the people. Nothing more than that. Pasteur as a young chemist had always been interested in the problems of why and how living things decay. So his main concern, his main thinking was on that why living things decay. Please underline, why living things go bad. Why milk turns sour? Please underline what he focuses on. Why milk turns sour? Why meat goes bad? Why it gets bad smell? Why wine ferments? Why wine goes bad? He started to give some lectures in Lilly on fermentation. So he gave so many lectures on fermentation, which is used in the field of wine. One of his chief industries in Lilly was the manufacture of alcohol from beetroot. In those days, beetroot was used to make alcohol. So one industrialist had a problem, and the wine which he prepared went bad, or it used to go bad very soon. So he came to Louis Pasteur and he asked why. Please find some solution for this. And he was fortunate in being able to carry out experiments in some of his brewers. Louis Pasteur worked on this, and which gave him a very useful solution. One manufacturer consulted Pasteur about his beer. So one manufacturer or producer or industrialist consulted Louis Pasteur. Please find a solution to this problem. Which was turning out badly? His beer was turning out badly. It was getting bad smell. Please find some solution. Pasteur, by helping this brewer, managed to discover all sorts of things. Pasteur helped him. How? He did not know before about yeast. So before he conduct experiments, Pasteur also did not know about yeast. Then what do you mean by yeast? Yeast is used to make beer foam and bread rise up lightly. Dear children, please underline. So why we use yeast? Yeast is used in so many products. Why? Because it is used to make beer foam. So it is used in beer to get foam. Foam means nore. Nore barlikke adan balastare. And bread rise up lightly. Bread to rise up lightly means as if it becomes soft. So yeast is used. Pasteur became certain that yeast was alive, made up of tiny living cells. So yeast is alive, or it is made up of small living cells. It is made up of small living cells. Please note down. When these cells were healthy, the yeast acted well. When these yeast cells were healthy or good, they act well. So if they go bad, certainly food will be bad. And if they were diseased, so if those cells were diseased or they were not living or in good condition or healthy condition, the yeast will be bad. The yeast and beer went wrong. So he found solution for this. So let's continue. Are you following, dear children? So whenever you find a new words or new thing, please note down. It is very essential. After a few years, Pasteur was made director of scientific studies at famous college in Paris. So after a few years, people recognized him and his discoveries. So he was given the opportunity of director of scientific studies at a famous college in Paris. Paris is the capital of France. He was still thinking about decay and yeast and germs. So though he worked as professor, her head or director, but his always focus was on why things decay, why they go bad. Yeast, he focused on yeast, germs, and one of his problems that he was trying to answer was, so he always tried to find answers to his problems. Do germs form from other germs? Please underline what were the questions. Louis Pasteur had in his mind. Do germs form from other germs, or do they just come themselves? So his main question was, do germs generate from other germs, or they come up generally? People like Pasteur believed that germs were carried on the air. So all people believed as Pasteur, germs were carried in the air. They go from one place to another. Might infect other things. So they get infect or they influence badly. That came in contact with them. So whenever they came in contact with something or somebody, so they influence on that particular thing. Others believed in what they called spontaneous generation. So other people believed that spontaneous generation means spontaneous or continuous production of germs in the air. They believed that germs had no parents and but just occur by themselves. Please underline. You can be asked one question: why germs are called spontaneous generation? So you have to answer like this: the germs or the people believed that germs had no parents, so they do not have parents, they do not come from parents and just occur by themselves, so they generate by themselves. Pasteur, let's continue. Pasteur proved that he was right by a very simple and clever experiment. So he made experiments and he proved. What he proved? He put some soup into some bottles. Then boiled it in order to destroy any germs that might already be in the soup. So he boiled soup and he destroyed germs in the soup by boiling. After that, he heated and pulled out the neck of his bottle until he formed a long, narrow neck with his big bend in the middle. So he opened that bottle and find it. The soup remained there for a long time. So the soup did not go bad. So it remained for a long time. Why? Because germs were cleared. Germs were destroyed. And it never went bad. That particular soup never went bad. That's why in our home, always our woman or mother, they keep the milk after 2 hours, 3 hours boil. Okay? They make heat or they boil milk, right? Okay. That said that the Pasteur is because there are no parent germs in the soup. So he proved that there are no parent germs in the soup. They cannot reach it because of the bend in the long tube. So bend means he stopped reaching to what we can say, reaching of germs into that bottle. So he took one of his bottles and split a little of the soup down in the tube, and he split that particular soup into the tube so that it settled in the bend. The soup went bad. Soon that soup went bad. We often speak of some dust traps. So dust traps, we speak about dust bins. Well, this bend in the tube was dust trap. So it keeps a dust trap. Because of the dust, which as we now know may carry germs. With the dust, the things go bad, so germs will carry it with the dust. It could get as far as the bend, but no further, and it settled there and infected the soup. In this way, the soup was infected. So he found such things. So let's continue. So this is only one of many hundred experiments which Pasteur made to show how full the air is of the dust particles and how germs may be carried by this dust. So in this way he made so many experiments and he came to conclusions how dust particles infect food. One very useful experiment was made to show the difference between pure and stale air. Please underline. So he made one beautiful and valuable experiment on pure and stale air. Stale means exhausted air. Pasteur again filled some bottles with the soup. So he filled some bottles with the soup. He took some into a hotel bedroom where air hardly ever changed. So he put some soup bottles into hotel bedrooms or hotel rooms where air never changed. Means there would not be any proper ventilation. Broke their necks off so that the air could enter freely. So he opened the neck or he opened the cap of those bottles. After a few minutes, sealed them again. After a few minutes, he sealed those bottles. He then took some bottles into a field nearby and did the same thing. So he put some bottles in the field and after some time he opened that cap and after some time he packed it. Finally, he opened some on the top of high mountains. He put some soup bottles on mountain top places. Again, sealed them up. So again, he sealed. What was the result? After some time, he tried to find out what was the result. When they were examined, the bottles opened in the hotel bedroom were full of soup which had gone completely moldy. So he experimented. He opened the bottles which were kept in the hotel room. So what were they were? And they were moldy. So what do you mean by moldy? So it is there in the glossary. So what do you mean by moldy? Covered with soft greenish material that grows on the bread or cheese. So moldy means some greenish material grows there, right? Why? There will be no fresh air. There was no fresh air even, we say. The bottles opened in the field were moldy. So in the field they were also moldy, but not quite so bad. But they were not so bad as in bottles of a hotel room. Those opened on the mountain had no germs. So he opened the bottles which he kept in mountain tops, but there were no germs in them at all. So there were no germs. So what does it show? So if there is fresh air, there will not be any germs. Nowadays, we pay a great deal of attention to pure air. So we think about pure air. Open windows to freedom from dust to garden cities. So we think about these things. Clean cities, pure air. Pasteur was one of the first to show how necessary all these are if we are to fight against germs and disease. Pasteur in 18th century, he showed that how necessary these open air, open windows, pure air, freedom from dust, garden cities were necessary. So we were to fight against, if we want to fight against these diseases, we have to have pure air, open windows and gardens. So let's continue with the paragraph number 12. Another very useful discovery of Pasteur's while he was working in Paris was the process which now called after him pasteurization. So he worked on pasteurization. What do you mean by pasteurization? Some French wine growers were troubled by germ which had turned their wine sour. So some wine growers are producers of wine. So they had a trouble that their wine used to go bad very soon. Pasteur showed that by heating the wine or milk or whatever it might be to temperature of 50 or 60 degrees centigrade, the germs were made harmless. So he gave particular solution to those manufacturers that if you heat wine, milk or whatever to 50 to 60 centigrade, those germs which we found harmful, they will become harmless. Okay, so this was pasteurization. So this is pasteurization he discovered. Pastured milk is milk which has been treated in this way. So today's we find pastured pack of milk treated in this way, then sealed up to prevent more germs from entering. So in this way, after cleaning the germs by boiling, after that we will seal up that what we can say, that packet, and there will be no entry of germs into packet. So paragraph number 13. Louis Pasteur was what we should call all-round scientist. So he was called all-round scientist. So he worked on every problem. All the research which he did in his laboratories was meant to help his fellow beings. As I told it so many times that all his experiments are for the sake of human beings, betterment of human life. It would be impossible to imagine Pasteur experimenting with explosives or poison gas. So even we cannot imagine, or even we could not imagine that Pasteur would experiment on explosives or poison gas. So he did not work on explosives or poison gas. Why? Because his main focus was to improve human life or improve life in the world. Pasteur founded the branch of science called bacteriology. Please underline. So he started a new field of science that is called bacteriology, or the study of bacteria. What does it contain? It contains study of bacteria. Until he showed what a wide range he had by studying the bacteria in all sorts of different activities. So in this science field, or in this science new way of science, he studied about nature, features, and how they function, how they means bacteria's functions in different conditions. For 3 years, he spent all his time and energy in tracking down the cause of a disease which had ruined the silk industry. So he focused on silk industry which was ruined by bacteria. He began to believe that most, if not all, infectious diseases were due to certain bacteria. So he found, please underline, his discover was, his main thing he discovered, that infectious diseases were due to certain bacteria which they got into blood, multiplied there, and caused disease. How they get into our body? So they enter into our blood and they will multiply themselves. They will multiply themselves and they cause disease. So this is what we have to prevent. Paragraph number 15. Many other men were working and experimenting against those bacteria. So many scientists were working on bacteria which were the enemies of men and which were invisible. Though bacteria were enemies of men and they are used, so they are invisible, we cannot see easily, but present everywhere. Bacteria are present everywhere. As I told, there is no such field where there are no bacteria, and always ready to attack. So they were always ready to attack. Dr. Jenner in England had already discovered vaccination for smallpox. Please underline, already Dr. Jenner discovered vaccination for smallpox. Smallpox was a serious disease in those days. Nowadays, it was controlled with vaccination. Smallpox ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಸಿಡುಬು ರೋಗ ಅಂತ ನಾವು ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಕರೀತೀವಿ. But inoculation against other diseases had not yet started. Inoculation means injecting weak form of that particular disease into body. Vaccination, how they, inoculation means injecting that weaker form of that disease. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಇನ್ಕ್ಯುಲೇಷನ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಮತ್ತಿನ್ನೇನು ಅಲ್ಲ, ಈ ಒಂದು ಜರ್ಮ್ ಇರ್ತದೆ. ಉದಾಹರಣೆ ಈಗ ಕೊರೋನಾ, ಕೋವಿಡ್-19 ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ಟೀರಿಯಾ ಇದನ್ನ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದು, ವ್ಯಾಕ್ಸಿನೇಷನ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದು ಅದೇ ಬೇಸ್ ಮೇಲೆ. ಈ ಕೋವ್ಯಾಕ್ಸಿನ್, ಕೋವಿಶೀಲ್ಡ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದು, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ವೀಕ್ ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಅನ್ನು ತೆಗೆದುಕೊಂಡು ಅದೇ ವೀಕ್ ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಅನ್ನ ನಮ್ಮ ಬಾಡಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಜನರೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಲಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಜನರೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ ತಕ್ಷಣ ನಮ್ಮ ಬಾಡಿ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ವಿರುದ್ಧ ಹೋರಾಟ ಮಾಡ್ತಕ್ಕಂತಹ ರೋಗ ನಿರೋಧಕ ಶಕ್ತಿಯನ್ನು ನಮ್ಮ ಬಾಡಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಔಷಧವನ್ನ ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಳ್ಳುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಈ ತರದ ಒಂದು ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆರಿಮೆಂಟ್ ಅನ್ನ ಲೂಯಿ ಪ್ಯಾಶ್ಚರ್ ಅವರು ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು. So this is what about inoculation. Please remember, dear children. Pasteur was trying to discover a cure for the terrible disease called anthrax. So he tried to discover solution for anthrax, which men sometimes get infected by shaving brushes, which were attacking cows and sheep in France and killing them off very quickly. So in those days, France was completely surrounded by anthrax. Anthrax, so it usually spread with the shaving brushes, with cows, sheep, and all human beings and animals were affected badly by this. He found out first of all that a cow could not have anthrax twice. So he found one beautiful solution for this. For the second time, the cow could not be anthrax infected. ಎರಡನೇ ಸಲ ಆ ಆಕಳು ಏನಾಗಲ್ಲ, ಅಂತ್ರಾಕ್ಸಿಗೆ ಒಳಪಡಲ್ಲ. ಹೇಗೆ? Then he began to wonder whether it would not be possible to make a cow or even a man just a little ill with anthrax. So what did he do? ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾನೆ? So that they might not get it again. So those animals are human beings, do not infected by that anthrax again. So this is very important. Perhaps this would be done by giving the cows or sheep weak old germs to make them safe for human. Please underline. So what is the thing that the scientist Louis Pasteur did? So he gave weak old germs in the form of injection. And safer immune, it can uplift the immune system for the future. One can imagine how dangerous this idea of giving people germs must have seemed in those days. So how people were badly feared about these germs. Many scientists were angry about it. Many scientists did not believe, so they angry on Louis Pasteur. What this scientist is doing? They agreed to allow Pasteur to prove it by public experiments. So they challenged Louis Pasteur, prove it publicly. So Louis Pasteur took it as a challenge. So Pasteur collected some sheep, goats and cows. So he collected some sheep, cows, and divided them into two lots. So he divided those cattle into two groups. To one lot he gave injection to weak anthrax germs. To one group he gave injection of weak anthrax. The other lot was left alone. So he did not care for other animals. Second group. Then certain day all animals were injected with the most deadly anthrax germs that could be produced. So after that he injected most deadly anthrax injection. On the third day after experiment of third day, crowd of people gathered. So many people, scientists gathered. They assembled there to see what happened there. The sheds to see what had happened to the animals. Pasteur, even though he was sure of himself, so he was very much sure of what he was doing, must have felt nervous. Still he felt some nervous. All the 24 of animals that had first been protected by the weak germs were perfectly well. Sir, the animals which were given injected or which were injected by weaker forms of anthrax, they were very well. The deadly injection had done them no harm at all. So that injection did not harm anything. Of other 24 animals, 22 were dead. So in the other group, out of 24, 22 were dead. The other 2 were dying. The other 2 were at the dying stage, final stage. When this news spread that Pasteur had discovered a cure for anthrax, so the news of discovery of disease, the solution or vaccination for anthrax. This news spread all over the world. Hundreds of people wrote to him for supply of vaccine or weaker germs. So many people wrote to him, please supply those weak forms. He had no turn his laboratory into kind of small germ factory. So they requested him to supply, we will make vaccination. Then what did he do? So let's continue it in the second part of video. If I continue this chapter in this same video, it will go lengthy. So here we end this video. So remaining paragraphs you will study in the part 2 video. So thank you. Keep watching our part second video. Thank you. Let's meet in the second video.